Today's September 4th. It's Labor Day. And we have a special episode for you today. We're going to take a deep dive into Robo Umps and errors. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Yins, guys. Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh, and I'm joined as always by my brother Jake. What's up, Jake?
Hey, man. So I just want to start this off by saying your new little intro.
Yeah.
That you got going on here. Pretty cool. I like it. I watch it every time you start. Dude, I think you got every uniform we wear also in the clips.
Ooh. That was not intentional.
Like, to the point where I saw Brian Reynolds wearing, like, the blue socks and
Yeah, because of the bat drop, the Homestead Grays.
The Homestead Grays, the black, the white, the gray, the City Connect.
Yeah.
You got it all, man.
So if you're audio listeners, little inside baseball for you there on the YouTube side of things, on the video side of things, which we do if you weren't aware, and if you were aware and you just prefer the audio portion, you're like most people that prefer the audio portion, and that's fine. But it is kind of cool. We got like a little baseball card theme going on the YouTube side. So if you're a baseball card guy, it's worth, you can keep listening to the audio, but it's worth a look. It's worth to check out what we're doing over there on the video side of things. But
you put a lot of work into that stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have a good time with it.
It's good stuff.
I can let the music stop there. I can, learn a little bit along the way too, which is kind of fun. So
yeah,
long way to go there for me to do like really awesome things, right? But this one's pretty cool. I worked a long time on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is an interesting one. I think this is the first time we've done something this far in advance to prepare. But we're not going to beat around a bush here. You're not going to hear much from the series with the Cardinals because we are recording this on the 28th. We just released one today, but we're recording this a week early. Johan Oviedo just pitched his gem that we'll talk about let me see if I can do this right, that we just talked about on Friday. Even though we haven't yet, but we will. But we're doing this early because we're both going to be on a trip over Labor Day weekend. We're just not going to have the time. We're going to be in Cincinnati playing a big tournament that we always play in every year that we love a lot. So it's going to be a good time. But also last year, I think, last year or 2 years ago, we tried to do this. And we just couldn't get it done, and we ended up having to cancel or release it like days later or something like that. I forget.
We like started recording it or something, and just something happened. Something went wrong. Couldn't upload it or something.
Yeah, and it was just hard to do. So anyway, we decided we would just skip all of that and just go straight to doing it early, so I didn't have to take down my setup as well as pack up all the things that I pack up for the tournament. So so this is what we're doing. Doesn't matter to you necessarily, but we'll give you a little insight of why we're just picking a couple topics here and going deep dives into a couple topics that are not what just happened this weekend.
Yeah. If we get to both of them.
Yeah. And we'll at least cover a little bit of it because I said it in the intro.
Sure.
Has something to do with errors and hits that we've seen a lot, but you're right. We may talk a while, right? Because this first topic, the Robo Ump topic, and I know that this is a hot topic for a lot of people, and you're talking about when is this coming in and what does it look like when it does? Oh, okay. So let's start off with that. Like, Jake, what is your initial opinion of Robo Umps?
Don't want them.
Don't want them. Okay. How's come?
Without
giving away our discussion.
Right. I just don't like it. This is the human element of the game that I just don't want to see go. There's things that we're going to talk about that can alter my point of view, but it won't change my point of view, if that makes sense.
Well,
I can alter some thoughts, but not completely.
Yeah, and I'm always in the camp where I reserve the right to change my mind at any time.
Right.
And if I share an opinion about this topic 6 months ago, it might be different today. And we're going to talk about this, and I may share a few opinions. And you know that I'm like kind of skittish to really come out with an opinion. You know, it's how I
Right.
get, because I'm leaving a little room for doubt. I'm leaving a little room for persuasion, for time to kind of rearrange some things in my head. I'm also a very I love technology, and I'm kind of a techie when it comes to stuff like that. And so for me to just say, well, we can't have technology involved, like, I'm kind of like, no, I kind of like that. But there are limitations. And I would say that whether you are for or against the quote unquote Robo Ump, I think there's something here for you. I am still kind of like, I'm not 100% against it. I think that there are ways that it could be implemented and be very tasteful. And then other ways, I think that it could just strip kind of I think it could kind of strip the romance from the game a little bit. I think there are intangibles that are involved with, I'll even say this, and this is maybe a crazy take or crazy point of view of it, but I would even say this, like, if you tell me that Robo Umps are going to stop managers coming out and yelling at umpires, like, I don't want that.
Right.
I actually want to see the manager come out and rah, 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 and take his hat off and throw it down. Like, that's entertaining. I want to see it every once in a while.
Kick some dirt on the shoes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, some of that stuff is fun for me. And I want some of that. If I have a hitter up to bat and he thinks he was ripped off, I want him taking that to his next at bat. I want him going up mad. I want him to think about that and say, well, if you're going to go a little bit, I got to chase. I got to get a hit. What about now? Are you going to call me out now? No, I just got a hit. And like, if it's a robot, you're just defeated. You're just like, oh, I suck. I thought that was a ball. It obviously wasn't a ball because the robot said it wasn't. And I feel like there's a little bit of that competitive nature that might get lost in that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like, there's, I don't know, but I'm not bound to that. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is an interesting conversation, and both topics that we have today, and actually this Robo umpire topic was on my mind for this date for a long time. I've been thinking about, like, oh yeah, we can actually go deep into this conversation for that Labor Day episode. That'd be really great. Coincidentally, The Athletic released an article recently about it with a lot of stuff where I'm like, perfect. I'm all systems go here. I don't have to take notes right now because they've done it for me, basically. And so we're going to break that down. We're actually just going to go through that article. If you guys are subscribed to The Athletic, go out and give this thing a read. If you're not, and you've never been, I think there's even a trial period. Go out there and take a listen to it, or read down through it. But also, I mean, we're going to go through it. So stick around for this discussion. I think that there's going to be some things that might challenge us, might challenge you. And we've already read it, so we have been challenged already. And so there's some things that we could talk about. Anything to add before we get started?
No, we're good. Let's get into it.
That was my cue to give me time to take a drink. Now say something.
Why don't you just say something? Listen, there's not a lot to say yet because I'm.
You're chomping at the bit, waiting for it.
Yeah, like, I don't want to say chomping at the bit either. I'm waiting to get into it because we haven't actually talked about it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about a couple little things, but we both just kind of read through it.
Yeah. Okay, so first off, I don't know if we want to kind of follow the article and when they bring things up, or if we want to talk about a couple things. I would say, let me preface this a little bit. Robo umps is a really loose term. To me, if I was to get technical, and I would say robot umpires for me is calling every single pitch. And if I say that, I can very easily say I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you want to lump any kind of automated strike zone, if you just want to say whatever it looks like, automated strike zone, then I think that there's a little room for discussion there and for compromise here and there, because there is a scenario where people say every single call fed into the ear of the umpire, he makes the call, and what are you going to say to that umpire? He didn't make the call. If it's wrong, he's gonna be like, yeah, dude, I know, I had it a strike too. You know what I mean? Like he's not going to argue. He's going to be like, yeah, I'm with you, but there's nothing I can do. I can't overrule the computer.
Nothing like that delayed strike 3.
Yeah, exactly. Like
strike 3.
Oh, my bad. It says in here it was a strike. Obviously, this is going to cover some of the technological holdups. Here's the gist of what they're saying. It's not coming. It's not coming opening day 2024. There's too much to work out. So let's talk about what that is. Because if you're somebody who's saying, boy, I can't wait till next year when we have robot umpires, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not happening. There's no way. And if it does, we're in for it. This is going to be bad. I think, because of a lot of the things that they bring up here. However, an electronic ball strike system is in play. It's happening. And the box that we see on the TV is not the box that they're using.
No.
So when we look at it on TV and we say, oh, that had to be a strike. Look at that. It's the same for every single hitter, the one we're looking at.
Right.
And it is not the way that it will be implemented.
Right.
It's going to have to change per hitter.
Are they using that for the scorecards? For the umpire scorecards?
The scorecards are different per hitter. They're not using the one that's on TV.
No, I mean, are they using? I know that. I mean, are they using this?
The Hawkeye
system? Yeah, the Hawkeye.
I believe they are, but I don't really know because I'm not sure if is it actually in place in all the.
I have no idea.
I don't know that they've said that. Anyway, let's go down through this because there's a couple things. AAA right now is using this, and what do they have? They have the two different versions. They have Tuesday through Thursday. They don't play on Mondays in AAA. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every single pitch, automated strike zone. Human umpire is standing there, but he gets the calls relayed to him. I've been to those games. And you know, when you're in the stands, you don't know if it's a strike or not.
Right.
But I think a lot of fans don't realize what's going on because they're still arguing. There's just nothing to argue at that point.
Right.
Unless you're arguing that it's wrong, which actually could be valid. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they have human umps. They're calling the pitches, and the players, and this is batter, catcher, and pitcher only. Maybe managers? I don't even think managers do. Batter, pitcher, catcher are the only three people on the field who can challenge a call. And essentially, if it's a batter, he hits the top of his head and he says, I want to challenge that call. You called it a strike. I think it's a ball. He says it's being challenged. The scoreboard screen at the field pops up. They show the pitch come in. It either lands in the strike zone or out of the strike zone, and immediately the call stands, whatever that call is. Not the call the umpire made, but what you see on the screen. If it's in the zone, it's a strike. If it's out, it's a ball. And the fans get into it because they're like, oh, what's it going to be? And they wait. Ball, yeah. I told you. You know what I mean? That wasn't a strike. You stink. Yeah. I was at a game in Columbus where the first 8 challenges were successful. Wow. You talk about an ump having a bad day. I'm not going to give him a hard time. He doesn't have to call pitches for half the week.
Right.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Oh, now I got to turn it on.
Right.
That's a joke. Obviously, they're looking at the plays still. It's not like they're like just standing back there, be like, oh yeah, he said strike, so we're good. There's other things they have to look for too. But either way,
could you imagine?
He's just standing back there twiddling his thumbs just to prove a point.
I feel like that's like a Savannah Bananas umpire.
So the two systems very different, but I got to tell you, just on the onset of this, the challenge system was fun. as a fan.
Yeah.
Calling every pitch, you just don't even, first off, as a fan in the stands, you don't even know what's going on. Fans are still booing the umpire when they call strike 3. They're still saying, what are you looking at? Because they don't have any idea that there's a robot in his ear calling the pitches. Now, once we know, I wonder if it changes, but like your average fan may never know.
Right.
Your average fan who's not listening to any podcasts, who's not watching MLB Network, they just want to catch a ball game. They may not even know. Now, once the challenge system comes in, it's right in front of you. It says, so-and-so up to bat is challenging the called strike. And it's like, oh, and then we watch it. And then it's like, the call's overturned. And I mean, it's interactive. We all see it happen. It's not like there's a review and you don't see it happen
right
in real time. I actually think it's exciting. And then it became a topic of conversation. Like, wow, this umpire's having a bad night, 8 successful. And you only get like 3 or 4 challenges, right? Unless you get it right. So you basically only get like 3 or 4 wrong answers. It's like 3 to 5, somewhere in that range, 3, 4, 5, that you can, if once you, and I believe a team ran out of, by the end of it, or maybe it was a different one because I went to a couple games that weekend, that a team may have ran out of challenges, which is something that they talk about in this article. So anyway, let's get into the article a little bit. Because they do ask some questions. I think one of the first questions that they ask is, and I think it's kind of the overarching theme. Do we actually want every call to be right? Half of the listeners right now said, well, yeah, obviously. And the other half was like, well, what do you mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
what do you mean?
What do I mean? I mean, a lot of players and managers. Did I miss a quote there?
No.
Okay. A lot of players and managers and coaches have voiced their opinion on this. They don't want every call to be 100% right. And that sounds crazy, but let's dig into it a little bit. And I'm trying not to read the article. I want to encourage you guys to go out and read the article from The Athletic. So I'm trying to just touch some things, but I will read some things here. But the question is, do they want every pitch to be called by non-humans strictly by the rule book strike zone in, say, a 17-2 game? Or when it's the 8th inning and ominous dark clouds are gathering? Which that one I might disagree with. I think even if dark clouds I don't care about the dark clouds. There's rules in place. We've played 5 innings. It's a complete game. If it's going to rain, I don't care if we play the 9th or not. There's rules in place that says if we don't get to the 9th inning, we can finish this game.
Yeah.
I don't want you calling me out just because you want to not get rained on. No, I don't agree with that one. The 17-2 game, 100% I agree with that one. They don't want that. And they almost always prefer the challenge. Because if it's 17-2 and you get called a little bit off the plate, you have a choice. You can either say, I get it, let's get out of here. Or you have a choice to say, no, you know what? I want my at-bat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want this at-bat. I need it.
Yeah.
So, there's some thought there too. Where do you want to go here? I mean, is there anything in particular that sticks out that's maybe at the front end of this thing that you want to start with? Like I said, I don't want to go directly here. Do we want to talk about what the strike zone looks like?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's where I was going to start with it, because I mean, obviously you said the square on the TV is not what they're going by. That's not 100% accurate. It stays the same all the time. So we actually did look into it a little bit of what the strike zone actually is.
Yeah.
In major leagues right now.
Yeah. So start with that.
Because it's changed over time.
What is the strike zone right now? And let's save them the history of it.
Sure. And it is, help me, I did not write it down. I'm going purely off memory. Yeah. It is the midpoint between the belt and the shoulders.
The top of the uniform pants and the top of the shoulders? Yeah, I think so. So what everybody's torso is different. So whatever the midpoint is there.
Right.
Usually the letters.
To just below the kneecap.
To just below the kneecap. So below the kneecap to maybe the letters or just underneath the letters.
Yeah.
That's your strike zone.
Right. It's also taking into consideration how when you're set and ready to swing.
Yeah. Ready to offer at a pitch, right? So
yes.
So it's not like me standing there and then the umpire looks at me and says, okay, there's my strike zone. No, it's once I get in, if I'm crouched down a little bit more, my strike zone's a little bit lower. If I stand up tall, my strike zone's a little bit higher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention you got guys that are different sizes. And so you're immediately starting from a standpoint of, okay, we have to make sure that our technology can account for Jose Altuve and Yordan Alvarez batting back to back.
Yeah.
And they're different sizes and their batting stances are different. But let's also throw this in, Jake. What if I swing at a high pitch and pop out my first two at bats? And I decide as a discipline that I'm going to crouch down just a little bit lower, Jeff Bagwell style, and step back into my swing so that ball that I see up, once I step back, it lowers a little bit and I'm not offering it a ball too high. Maybe just like a little in-game adjustment that I do just to avoid. By the way, I've done that very thing. It wasn't in the middle of a game. I did it for like 2 weeks because I kept swinging at high pitches. And then once I kind of broke out of that, then I was able to go back to my normal stance. But if that happens, you don't get that old, like the system's going to have to adjust on the fly.
Right. On the fly.
And so that's somewhere that they aren't there yet, right?
Right.
I believe they can change it, but not that quick.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting when you look at it in that perspective, because I mean you see Jack Sawinski changing his batting stance up a little bit. His is more just on off the plate stuff right now, but he's making an adjustment.
Yeah.
What if the next time that adjustment is to sit a little lower or stand up a little taller?
Yeah, you can't just program it in and say,
like, it's just, yeah.
Is it going to be like, oh, we have pictures of all the players so that when they get up, we can put a picture up. We also size them in their batting stances for the strike zone. Well, what if that changes? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, oh, we got to get resized for the strike zone. Like, what are we doing? And maybe that's it. Maybe that's actually the system that they go for. And if you change your stance in the middle of a game, well, that's on you. So
run back to the clubhouse real quick and get a remeasure.
Well, but I'm saying, like, if that's, well, but I would even say it would be reasonable to say you can change your batting stance in the middle of a game, but that's on you.
I got you.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's
I would actually be, it's a risk, but like, that's something that I could see happening. And I'd be okay with that if that was if you were getting quote unquote fitted for the strike zone. I just can't believe that's even a thing.
As long as you were able to do it between games. As long as you were able to say, hey, I need to come in early, even if I'm on the road.
Yeah.
They would have to have a system in place saying, yes, you can get to the ballpark.
Every ballpark's going to have this. Yeah.
X amount of hours before the game. You can get fitted right before and everything will be kosher during the game. Like, I'm good. I'd be okay with that. Like, they would have to allow for that.
Okay. So, I mean, that's pretty, I didn't expect to go there. I mean, if you guys have any other kind of suggestions that you think, like, how else would you do for that? So, you know what I mean? It does say here, at least in the current AAA version, all players were measured in spring training. The hitters of each height were assigned an average strike zone. So does it account for crouching? People familiar with Hawkeye say no at the moment. So you were measured, and so they just say, oh, this guy's 6'7", here's his zone. But if he crouches, and it says here, so he's really like 6'1", tough. That's your fault. So spring training, by the way, because you're measured, it's your height, and they give you an average strike zone according to your height.
Yeah, and that doesn't go to say it's, the It's from here to here when you're standing up if you're this tall. I mean, I'm sure they take into effect everybody's going to sit into their legs a little bit.
Well, I guess that's a question
Most
though.
people.
When it says they're measured in spring training, do you think they're measured in their batting stance ready to hit? Now, if you do change your batting stance in the middle of the season, that is on you. And maybe there could be something in place to say like, hey, I've changed my batting stance. Can I get remeasured? Can we alter this a little bit? But right now they're saying no at the moment, but they left it at the moment, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it could be. And it even says that if the system gets deployed in the big leagues, that's expected to change. With lasers and wearable technology, the zone could be tailored to every size, shape, and stance. Could you imagine if we're actually like, oh yeah, we've got lasers or maybe we just and we say, oh, he's crouched down, pretty nuts. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like Aaron Judge and Jose Altuve don't really have the same strike zone now, is what it says. So anyway, it won't happen then either. When it's in place, it's not there yet. But that's one of the things they're getting to. The other thing is the ballparks, whether it's going to be the same, because there are these guys that are, there are players, multiple players, a lot of players saying, sometimes I go into one place and it's different than in the other place, which the Hawkeye people say, no, it's not. And I'm like, well, I don't actually know who I want to trust there. Obviously, being a guy that's in computers and trusts that like if you design something with a set of rules, computers are very good at following directions. They're very good at following directions. They will not think on their own, though. And so there's not, things like that. However, there are bugs. There are things that could alter that. And I don't know what those are in different ballparks, but they did say that they would look into all of those things before. I mean, they'll double, triple check it. And that's a good thing.
I feel like it would have to be the same distance from home plate, the same height up off the ground. Like everything would have to be a 100% uniform. And I don't know if every ballpark could be that. Does that make sense?
I think
let's take this seat out because we have to put the robot ump here.
Right. Obviously, there's I don't know how many cameras there are actually gathering this data. I'm sure that there's several of them all working together to get the exact thing. But yeah,
right.
They're saying that they have that in place and they'd be able to do that. So, it's crazy. But it says the ball strike studies tell us that human umpires don't adjust their zones to compensate for hitters who are extra short or extra huge.
I just find that hard to believe.
Well, the thing is they're supposed to.
Right.
So they're just not doing well. And this is where a lot of people say this is why we need robots. Because these guys are so bad. You know what I mean?
I get what people are saying, but they're really not that bad.
Well, no. I get that. And I don't think we need to go down that path necessarily. I mean, a bad umpire is like 89% correct.
Right.
But that doesn't make him not bad. Like there's still an average. An average is still 95. It's like an OPS plus. Like sure, you're hitting 300, but if everyone in the league is hitting 350, then 300's not doing that well. You know what I mean? Like you get the idea.
Right.
There's some statistics in this article that I don't think I want to get into. I think I want to save some of that for you guys to read the article, but they do share the strikeout rate in 2022 versus 2023 and the walk rate and what that means. There's a really cool piece about Joey Votto, one of the greatest eyes in the game. Yeah. And Votto kind of questioned some of the balls and strikes. And it's like, boy, if you're going to trust anyone, like I feel like he knows. You know what I mean? We talk about Brian Reynolds all the time saying like, yeah, he knows whether it's a ball or a strike. The problem is sometimes the umpire thinks it's a strike or the catcher steals that strike and we want him swinging at that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that there's Gary Morgan. You guys listen to Gary Morgan from the Fan Forum and Inside the Bucks Basement. I think in one of his articles on Inside the Bucks Basement, he said that if Robot Umps ever came in, that Brian Reynolds would hit 350 because he knows what the strike zone is. And once a robot's calling it, he's not going to have to chase pitches anymore.
Yeah.
Because pitchers aren't going to get those calls. And we talked about it on last week, right? Is how we say this, last week's episode, about the number of pitches off the plate that the Pirates are getting called strikes. That would stop.
Yeah.
So go back and listen to last Monday's episode where we talked about how many pitches that the Pirates are watching and being called strikes and things like that. One of the arguments here is that the games will go long again because you can't stretch out the zone a little bit. Casey Candell, what a name. What a name, man. I was reading this article and I was like, oh my gosh, they're talking about Casey Candell. You remember Casey Candell, right?
Not really.
You don't really remember him? Man,
Yeah.
I remember him from his Astros days. You know what? He would be a really good
For the
immaculate grid, I think, because I think he played for a couple different teams and no one's thinking of him. Houston, Montreal, and Cleveland. Remember those three teams for Casey Candell. But I remember when he was in Houston, which is like most of like from 27 through age 32. And then a couple years in Cleveland, 35 and 36. But I remember those Houston years in the early 90s. It's weird that I remember those. I mean, I wasn't, but maybe I just remember the name. I don't know. But either way, he's managing in Buffalo. And he had a lot to say. He does not like this. He doesn't like the way they do it. He does like the challenge. Everyone, put it this way, everyone they talk about, they like the challenge system. They do not like the every pitch automated.
Yeah.
He
Which
says,
makes sense.
yeah, and he says the games are going to become 3.5 hours long. The walk rate has skyrocketed and all this stuff. And you look it up and it's like, yeah, it's gone up. The walk rate has gone up significantly. The strikeouts have actually gone down. And that's actually true too. They actually did some lowering of the strike zone too. They changed it, like they were trying to define a little more of what a strike is, and I think they were changing some things there too. Not worth getting into for the sake of this conversation. But I think the question comes in, do we really want to? And I think that's where a lot of those situations come in that we talked about earlier, that we briefly talked about. And man, I would have answered this one way before reading this article. And I really do think that, you know, is this Casey Candell again? Is that where we're at here? No, yes, it is. He's saying it's either a strike or a ball. There's no, he's been hitting corners all day, so I'm going to give him that ball an inch off the plate. And there's part of me that says like, yeah, but does he really need to? You know what I mean? Like, if you're going good, why am I giving you more? I don't necessarily agree with that. What I agree with is if I set up on the corner as a catcher and you barely miss that spot and you've been barely missing all day, I'm going to reward you for barely missing if you've been doing it all day. But like, I'm not going to do it I'm not going to give you extra. Like if I know it's off there, I'm not giving it to you just because you're good. You know what I'm saying? But like if you've been good that day and you've barely missed your spot, if I set up down the middle and you miss off the plate, you're not getting it.
So I think you're missing the point.
Okay.
Of that one. It's more or less this guy's going good.
Pitcher alert,
it's
guys.
Not. That's me. That's me. No, it's not this guy's going good, so I'm going to give him more. It's this guy's going good, so it must be if it's close, it must be a strike because he's going good. You know what I'm saying? Okay. You're so used to calling that strike, and you're calling that strike, and all of a sudden you're eking it out just a little bit further.
So it's not intentional.
It's a gradual. No, the umpire is not.
But he's saying I'm giving him.
I said gradual.
You did.
That's not a
Okay.
word.
No.
Gradual.
Gradual.
But anyway, it happens over time without the umpire even realizing. All of a sudden, I'm giving him an inch and a half off the outside corner because he started
Oh,
on the corner. He started a quarter inch off the corner. Then he went to. I mean, obviously,
that's actually it. That's actually the rest of that. You're hitting it right there. He said not that the human umpires give guys that pitch purposely, but that guy who could throw the ball where he wants it gets more pitches out of the zone, and I think guys accept that.
yeah. I mean,
And I hate to
that's
say this happens, he says, but when it's a blowout game and it's 12-1, and the ABS system, which is funny, ATM machine, right? Automatic ball strike system, is calling every pitch, that's tough. There's
Yeah.
no expanding the zone to get the game going. I do think in a blowout, there should be some expansion of the zone. You think about, as much as I hate position players coming into pitch, those pitches are not strikes. And they get called strikes. But when they pass the hitter, they're above his eyes.
Yeah.
Like, that shouldn't count as a strike. And sometimes they're like, strike. If it's strike one, I'm giving it to him. They're not going to ring a guy up on that pitch, but
Right.
I might get the at bat moving for strike one and say, hey man, swing the bat. It's a guy throwing the ball to you.
Yeah, and everybody walking up to the plate should know the situation.
Yeah, and maybe they're, I don't know. I'm not going to inject into that, but the thing is like, do you really want? Do you want to be able to move the games along? Do you want to be able to say, like, for strike one, I'm giving it to you?
Yeah, I'm not going to ring you up on an egregious call, but
I might move things along by strike one, saying, like, let's go,
so that you get the point. Swing.
Okay. And then the other piece of this, were we done with that part of it? Because I think that's a lot. I think there's a lot of, I think there'll be a lot of mixed opinions on that. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to say, no. The strike zone's a strike zone. I don't care what the score is. And that's fair. I'm not going to, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
That's fine. I tend to think that there is some reasonable amount that you could expand the strike zone. I also think, and my biggest thing about that is, if I'm set up on the inside corner and I'm in here and you throw one that hits the corner, like if I want that slider to be a ball inside and I'm ready to block it and you miss that slider or you barely hit the corner on the other side of the plate, I'm sorry, that's not a strike. And I know as a pitcher, you might say, it's over the plate, I want it. But I'm like, no, you missed your spot. I'm not rewarding you that pitch.
The pitcher on the mound wants it. You're right. But even as a pitcher, I understand I missed that person missed a spot. Like, you shouldn't be rewarded for missing that badly or where you wanted the ball to go.
And you could say, like, well, why not? I might tell the catcher to go over there because I think he's peeking and cheating, and then I'm gonna throw it outside. So you could make that argument, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
that's a fair point.
And that's a fair point. I would have no argument against that. But that's my biggest thing is, like, I don't want that pitcher getting that when he's up there and he's wild. Like, you don't get that, man. You're not hitting your spot.
Right.
I'll give you some, like, I'm not going to be ridiculous, but if you're painting black on the opposite side of the plate than you tried to throw it, I'm sorry. As an umpire, I think if the catcher's setting up somewhere, I think he should be there and make sure that you hit the corner. And if you miss over there and I can't see it, well, dude, you're not even close. I want the pitcher who can actually hit his spots to get the calls, not the pitchers who can't. Like, I don't want to see a guy go up there and say, I'm going to throw 100 and hope it goes over. I don't want that. Throw 98 and get it over.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think you'll just see a lot of, like, catchers who are just going to be like, well, I'm not even going to set up then. Who cares? If it goes over the plate, it goes over the plate. I mean, I guess if you're still wanting him to spike that ball in the dirt, you're still going to set up so that you're in position. But speaking of catchers, what about Austin Hedges? We talked about Austin and Jason DeLay and how many calls they're stealing this year. At the same time that we're getting them called against us, they're stealing them. That goes completely away.
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't change the entire catcher's game. You still need to block. You still need to control your pitching staff. You still need to call the right pitches and make sure that you're throwing the right pitches to get swings and misses and to set up your next pitch. It's not completely removing it. But a guy like Austin Hedges probably gets phased out and maybe a guy who can hit a little better gets moved in. Are we talking about a problem or a solution? And
No,
maybe that's not it,
I get what you're saying. It just
but framing is gone.
gone.
It's just completely gone
No longer matters.
unless we're in the challenge system. Then it all can still stay. All of that skill set can be there, except a hitter has the ability to say, that was a ball.
Right.
You know what I mean? And to me, the more I watch, the more I'm like, man, I want that challenge system here now. I really do.
But is it accurate?
Well, that's a big piece, and I think that it won't be into place.
Like,
yeah, it won't be
until
in place
they have
unless
that
it's
figured
accurate.
out. There's none of this can happen until they figure that out.
Right.
No matter which way they go.
Yeah. They definitely talk about whether it's fun. I definitely think it's more fun. I really do. I think it brings when a pitcher or when a manager argues balls and strikes and he gets thrown out and he goes out there and he argues, there's a level of fun there.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get the ability to just challenge it and everybody knows whether you're complaining for no reason or if that umpire is just missing a few, dude,
Yeah.
like now there's an excitement in there and umpires don't have to argue that, which means they don't have to get thrown out for that. There can be other things. They're still going to argue.
Yeah.
Just not balls and strikes, which they're not allowed to do anyway. And they're getting thrown out for doing it because they don't like what's going on. The challenge system is fun. It really is.
And that's the one aspect I'd say, before a while ago, I would have said, no, that's dumb. Like, I don't get it. I'm here for it. I think it is exciting. I think that it's another aspect of the game that you can bring on board. I mean, the game's going to be ever changing. It's the old school heads like us. Like, we have to put some of that aside and accept some of the new stuff, and we try to do that when we can. And this would be one of those things I would be okay with the challenge system. I think it could be fun.
Yeah, it's a really good article. I encourage you guys to go out and read it. Obviously they go into way more detail. There's a lot of quotes. There's a lot of opinions that have been shared with them. There's a lot of different things about it's not just a science project, but maybe philosophy is involved. And I thought that was a really cool spin on it. But I would obviously, it's a good read. Go out and read that article. Mm-hmm. It's really good. The exact name of it is "Are Robot Umpires Ready for Their MLB Debut? Not So Fast." Anyway, go read it. It's really interesting.
Good article.
And I think that this is a good conversation piece and we can keep talking about this. And we did assume that this would take some time. And I hope that you guys have opinions on that and didn't just, well, you wouldn't hear this if you did turn it off, but hopefully you guys are, either yelling at the TV or making some points that we didn't think of and things like that. Go out if you're just listening, go to the YouTube just to leave a comment. If you're not like on Twitter and you don't want to just send us something on Twitter, go out on the YouTube video for this and just look up Bridge to Buctober. You'll find it. Put a comment out there and say, hey, this is what I think, because we could read some of those, next week or whatever. We can read some of the comments on that, just to kind of keep that discussion going. Off season, I'm sure we'll bring it up again.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about errors and hits while we're at it. Since we don't have actual Pirates baseball games to talk about, something that I've been talking about all year is how in the world are they marking that a hit?
Yeah.
That is an error. I could name two of them in the first week of the season where Ji-Wan Bae made errors and they called them hits. I'm sorry, Bae. I'm sorry, but I just remember this because we were bringing this up. There was also a ball that he was given a hit that was clearly an error.
Yeah.
And The Athletic has an article on this too, guys. This is a good time to just go out and get that trial and see what you think of The Athletic. They usually do a ton of deals. Like, I never pay what they want you to pay. Matter of fact, I think the last time, I don't know if I should be saying this, but
Right.
nobody there is listening, right? I'm not saying I'm
Right.
ripping them off. Like, they're giving you deals, right? And
Right.
at one
It's
point,
deals they offer.
Right, they offer them. At one point, I was like, hey, I'm canceling this. And they're like, why are you canceling? Because I don't want to pay this money. And then they're like, nah, psych, you can pay this. And I was like, I would do that. I think I'd pay that. So anyway, it's called In MLB, plays that were once errors are now hits, as players wonder why. We're not the only one. Hey, former Pirate Pablo Reyes is what they start off with. He chopped a grounder into the dirt in front of home plate. The baseball bounced towards Josh Donaldson, who fumbled the transfer out of his glove. Reyes reached base safely. Verdugo does something right after, something with Rizzo. Basically, everybody's saying those are both errors. We see it a lot where a ball goes to the outfield, an outfielder approaches the ball, and he bobbles it. And then he throws it in, and the guy either gets a stand-up double, and you're thinking he could have probably made a play there. That's a double either way. But if it moves him up to the third, you got to mark that an error. It can't be a triple. It's a double with an error. And they're not marking it. They just get the triple.
Did they give Connor Joe an error the other day when he threw the ball into center field kind of with his glove?
No errors on that. That's actually a really good point. Do you have another point there? Because what day was that? That was
my days
that was Saturday.
Run together.
That was Saturday. No
Saturday,
errors.
like the 26th or something like that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's a good point. It was Saturday. It was Saturday the 26th.
It was the extra inning game.
Yeah. And he did. And he threw it. It was the extra inning game. You're right.
Yeah, it was in the 10th inning.
So then, no, that was Thursday the 24th. It was in the 10th inning. You're right. So now let's see if Connor Joe has an error, because we did make an error in that game. They did give it to Connor Joe.
Okay.
So he did get an error for that. I mean, he threw the ball in the center field, essentially.
Yeah.
That had to be an error. Everybody moved up on that. So yeah, he did get credited for an error there. I was like, man, they didn't even call that an error? What a proven point. But no, there are a lot of plays that are happening right now that are not being called errors. And I guess the conspiracy theory, right? If you will.
Yeah.
And this is something that you and I talked about, and they briefly touched it. I think they did some quotes. I mean, anything that you think of, somebody else is thinking it too. I just want you guys to know that none of you are coming up with something that nobody else is coming up with. Sorry to bust your bubble there. But I kind of feel the same. Well, I kind of feel the same where when I think of something, I'm like, well, certainly I'm not the only one to have that thought.
Right.
And I'm like, they're just trying to boost batting averages. So they're all saying, hey guys, by the way, if this happens, it's not really an error anymore. Like, let's just
make it look like we made these changes for the better of the game.
We made all these changes to shift restrictions, and we said that batting averages are going to skyrocket. So let's just make sure that batting averages are going to skyrocket.
Just make sure we're right.
Make sure we're right. By the way, the batting average was 243 last year, and it's 248 so far this year.
The league
batting average.
Yeah.
So it's going up. I don't think they're making like a huge deal, right?
Right.
Fielding percentage, by the way, all-time high. No duh. To take something from the 90s.
Yeah.
No duh. It was the 1970s was when fielding percentage started going down. And then all of a sudden we're like, no, everybody's a really good fielder now. No more errors. Not calling them errors.
Yeah.
So that, and I just, what they're saying is like, well, I think we've reassessed what a difficult play is. No, that's garbage. Maybe if you had Ozzie Smith at shortstop instead of Mike Morse, that would just be an easy play.
Right.
Like, instead of getting a guy who hits 40 home runs and stands 6'3" playing shortstop and doesn't move well, maybe put an athletic guy who can go to the hole and make a play at shortstop. I think that's off topic. I think I'm probably really going back old head right here, right? Offense doesn't have to
No.
come from short.
No, you're not going old head. You're going proving point. Like
Every position nowadays is an offensive position. Every
get that.
position. There is no more like, well, shortstops
Defensive
don't have to
position,
hit.
right.
Shortstop, center field, catchers, they don't have to hit. No, I think anymore they all have to hit. Which is why you have bad fielders, except now we have bad fielders with an elite fielding percentage because of these balls that are not getting called errors. I challenge you guys to watch these games and think about it a little bit. But there's an article out there about this, and this was something that I was like, hey, I don't know if we're going to talk a full episode about robot umpires. So we're going to bring this other thing to the table too. And you said if we get to it, well, I mean, we're close to the end of this episode. And so I wanted to bring it up, and I'm not going to dive into this article, but every once in a while, I like a good conspiracy theory. Every once in a while. And we said this, and we said they're going to do things to make sure that they're going to, that they get it right. They actually quote in this article, a Nick Gonzalez, a sinking liner towards shortstop Andrew Velasquez, who failed to pick the baseball, and Gonzalez got credit for a single. And the pitcher said, usually when I come out of a game, I'm like, that was a hit? They gave that a hit? And pitchers especially are very upset about this because their ERAs are going up, which, by the way, the league ERA up this year.
Right.
As expected. So
it's crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's a lot there, and I think there is a little bit to it, man. I think that they do change things, and they're saying like, well, we're trying to get this accurate so that if you get a hit in Chicago and then you go to Pittsburgh and then they don't call it a hit, like that's not right. A hit should be a hit no matter what stadium you're at. And so they're trying to regulate it instead of leaving it up to official scorer. And here we go again. I don't disagree with trying to get things consistent.
Right.
And I'm not going to be such of an old head and a stubborn guy and saying like, we want the human element in the game. When I say I want the human element in the game, that doesn't mean I want things to be incorrect.
Right.
I still want things to be right. But if you do everything, so doing something by the book, that's one thing. Do your job. If the book says this is going to be an error and this is going to, which I think the book says, that's why I said something about like they made whether they made an extra effort to get to the play or not.
Yeah.
And so like if they made extra effort to get to the play, it's not an error, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of one of the things. But in that same vein, we always say like, well, if it didn't hit his glove, it's not an error. Like it's got to hit his glove in order for it to be an error. Unless they think that you made poor effort and let's say it's a fly ball to the first baseman and he's camped and then he misses it. They're going to call that an error whether it hits his glove or not.
Right.
And it should be.
It should. Yeah.
And so they're, the effort piece is what's in there. And they're just basically being real lenient on that effort.
Yeah.
Right now. And we don't want to hurt his feelings. Anyway, I think there's something to it.
That might have been my favorite comment you've ever made.
I think there might be something to it. I think they're trying to raise the batting average. How about Pablo Reyes? That's a nice name. Bringing that one back. Just the fact that, you know what I mean? Like you had a little Nick Gonzalez here. We got a little Pablo Reyes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. Oh, Garrett Cole had something to say about it too. Go figure.
Sure he did.
Yeah. He said he's challenged 10 plays during his 11-year career, and I've got none of them overturned. I'm 0 for 10. And there's some that I still believe are not hits. Like, dude, you're going through and come on, man. How many of those games do you think they won? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe some of them were in Pittsburgh. Maybe.
I just want my ERA to look better.
Garrett Cole.
It rained.
Yeah, it rained and I couldn't start on time and they took too much time and Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, hey, let me fast forward a little bit. Brewers are coming to town. We'll wrap this up. Brewers coming to town for 3. Is this the last time we play the Brewers this year? Sure is. We got 3 more against the Brewers. Let's rain on their parade a little bit. I don't even know if they're still in first because this is a week ago. I think that's how we say that. Anyway, we'll talk to you guys. Let me start some music here. You got anything else, by the way? I mean, we got 5 minutes till we hit that.
So this is Labor Day.
This is Labor Day right now.
Labor Day. So next Saturday, I'll be in Atlanta to watch the Buccos.
Yeah.
I'll be wearing my City Connect jersey the wife got me for my birthday, and I'm gonna go root on some Buccos.
That's it, man. I believe TBD will be pitching that day.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to guess.
Sure.
If I was going to tell you the probables for this week, they're all TBD. TBD threw a complete game shutout today on August 28th. Actually, we knew it was Oviedo, so.
Yeah.
All right. Music.
Cue it.
There we go. Thanks for sticking around in the conversation, guys, hanging out with us. I know that this wasn't the typical Pirates recap type stuff, but hey, we talk baseball here, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So thanks for sticking around and having a chat with us. Leave some comments. Let us know. Like, subscribe, all those things. Let's go, Bucks.
Let's go, Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks!